everyone to an episode of my favourite show, the Ol'Timers comic book show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Joining me as always, it's the Professor.
Hey, Johnny! What's up?
Hey, what's up? Nothing but the rent. Nothing but the rent today. So I'm missing from this week's No Prize. I was off doing a charity event yesterday. It was fun. We raised a shed load of money for a really good cause. So we placed in Middlesbrough, which offers care and end of life care for babies and small children and stuff. So that was worthwhile. Although I say now that my knees are arguing with me right now.
Yes.
I'm not as. I think I am an old timer, right? Getting there.
Do a little fundraiser for Johnny's knees.
Yeah, yes, please. Yes. I'd like some adamantium ones, please. Or some vibranium to take the shocks when I'm, walking.
There we go.
That'd be cool. So we did have a theme planned for this week, and it is a theme that we're going to revise later on in a couple of weeks' time or whatever. But unfortunately, the sad news of John Romita Sr. passing has kind of left a Marvel-shaped hole in our hearts, shall we say. So I know we've talked about Romita previously at odd times. So what we've actually done is going back, we're going to look at 4 Romita books. Hey, some better than others.
Very true.
That's all I'm saying. But for me, I was thinking about this the other day. Romita was, in my head, it's probably one of the last greats, isn't he?
If we're talking about like the greats of the Silver Age, then yes, 100%. He was one of the last ones that was left, and there are a few still kicking, but I mean, he was the last big name from Marvel that was still around from the 60s. So that was, to me, was that was a hard blow. I mean, we have to be happy that he made it to the ripe old age of 93.
Definitely.
And it was, it was, while maybe not 100% unexpected. I think we all expected it at some point, yeah. But it was, it's still sad. And I think it was a little bittersweet, or a little worth mentioning that. I mean, we're taping this on Father's Day, and we have a giant that has left us that creates more giants, and John Romita Jr., right? So
definitely.
And you can't really think of very many father-son duos in comics. I mean, we can think of a couple, but Romita's the top of the list.
Yeah. When you think about the legacy that Senior and the juniors created for himself, it's a huge impact that both had. John Romita Sr. created the house style for Spider-Man, practically. It's the style that everybody knows. That's not to detract or take away anything that Ditko did. Everyone knows I love Ditko, but John Romita Jr., it's kind of like that old age question, isn't it? We talk about characters and we say, well, this person created the character, but this person refined it to who we are. Yeah. So Cap joining the Avengers, for example, stroke of genius. Wolverine joining the X-Men, stroke of genius. These are the things that drove those characters, and they refine them to the characters, the heroes that we know they are. Yeah. But Stan Lee didn't create Captain America, Dave Cockrum didn't, and John Byrne didn't create Wolverine. So it's that I suppose transition of character as it goes through. We always talk about how characters are done wrong by change of creative teams, like they wipe away the stuff that's gone before and just go somewhere in a new direction. But sometimes it does work.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I will say that John Romita brought to Marvel and brought his the romance sensibility to Marvel. I think before that, it was that one thing that was missing. And once Romita got on the book and started doing more of the classically handsome Peter Parker with the really classic beauty of Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, and that really brought readers to the book. I think it maybe brought more female readers and more adult readers to deal with and you saw that. I think that affected the entire line, the entire Marvel line. Once Spider-Man started overtaking Fantastic Four as the number one seller, which it did with Romita on the book, then you have to take a look at what they're doing right? And then of course you start seeing more of the classic drama in your books.
The angst. He brought the angst.
Exactly.
That's what he did. He brought the angst, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a darkness to Ditko's pencils. There's a darkness to that version of Peter Parker. You know, the Peter Parker that Romita created or worked on became the model of Peter Parker for years to come. Through cartoons, you know.
Maybe Ditko's version I look more of like on a tragic kind of tragedy, and then once Romita gets on, it becomes more of a drama, you know, and very multi-dimensional at that point.
Cool, excellent. So we can't talk Romita Jr. without Senior. Moment there. We can't talk Romita Senior without talking about Spider-Man, and we do have a couple of Spider-Man issues coming up later in the show. So stay tuned for that. However, the first one we're going to have a look at is this. And I'm going to say the word beauty, but we'll see how that goes, how that fares. And it's one of his earliest works for Marvel, if not the earliest. It is Captain America 76. This is from May 1954. eBay, you can get this for around £2,340. As always, check the gradings and the listings on eBay. Not every comic on there is going to be near mint. Go Collect have a 9.2 on this at $14,400. $14,400. There you go.
Wow.
Cool. And you know what? It's not that special, I don't think. It's written by Don Rico, art by John Romita, inks by Jack Abel. And nobody talks about Captain America Commie Smasher. Professor, why?
Because long ago, Roy Thomas retconned that this was not the actual Captain America. When Stan Lee reintroduced Captain America to Marvel in Avengers #4 and wrote the definitive Captain America origin story, really, about how he was suspended in ice for 40 years. Until he was thawed out or thrown into the ocean by Submariner. He conveniently neglected to include the 1950s Cap, which, you know, was relaunched in the 50s, obviously, as a commie smasher. He would fight the communists and you know, in the leftover Nazis too. So here. We get some of these classic or not so classic, really, or forgotten, right? Maybe forgotten stories.
Forgotten's probably a good way to go.
Yeah. Which was interesting because you know, Captain America is one of those books that gets canceled post World War II and largely ignored for 10 years before they bring it back, and it's a not very successful relaunch, so they go away pretty quick. You know, and here, you know, you can look at the artwork. This is John. The reason to pick this is John Romita's first superhero work.
Right, there you go. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, not the first work he ever did for Timely or Atlas, but it's the first superhero work. He was mainly relegated to his strengths of doing romance comics for DC for years, and actually it was DC for years after he did this. But yeah, he was doing romance comics and horror comics and not superhero stuff, westerns. So to me, having a good look at his first superhero foray, obviously not his best work, but you can still see elements of the classic John Romita that we like. I mean, his women are still fairly good looking.
That panel Cap's face there, spot on.
Yep.
Is this Betsy Ross, Hulk's Betsy Ross?
It's not. It's a separate Betsy Ross.
How many Marthas are there in the universe? God damn it!
It's very, very true. But of course, Betsy Ross is. Come on, you have to have a Betsy Ross. Is anybody surprised by that? I'm not.
No. I just when I read that, I was like, is it?
No,
like she's round the army, so is it not?
But she might as well be Lois Lane for how she's introduced.
Yeah.
She's in love with Captain America, but thinks Steve Rogers is a putz. So hey,
never heard that before.
Yeah,
I absolutely love Bucky's secret identity. Bucky's secret identity is actually Bucky.
Yep.
It's like, you'd think somebody would put 2 and 2 together and say, hold on a second.
Yeah. The thing that interests me, and I guess the most interesting thing, is to look at the different art styles used back in the 50s. I mean, they really don't pay a lot of attention to Cap's shield. If you look in from panel to panel, the rings are different. Yeah. The red and the white, sometimes they're swapped. So it's interesting to see how they're still kind of fudging that out. They're nothing's that classic look yet. Yeah. The Cap's A on his cowl is much too big. But
I always love his little wingtips. I mean,
yeah.
What's the point of the wingtips? I've never understood that.
He's also really, really thin in this. If you see some of there's a big there's a page spread with him diving at the bad guys in one story. And
is it that one?
It might be that one. And I'm just like, oh, he looks kind of skinny. So
it's terrible. You're absolutely right. This is the art style of that time. So any artist trying to make it in the comic books is going to ape, honor, homage, any of those words. This particular style. I mean, take away the colors, and this could be a Batman comic. They did. When we look at the old Batman 39 from like the 30s and 40s, there's nothing staggering about it. It's idiosyncratic because it's not part of the real Cap America origin piece. It is forgotten. To turn around and say it's not really Steve Rogers, it's somebody else.
Yeah.
Down the line. But I don't know.
Got a Human Torch story in there too.
Yeah. It's a story bit. Oh yeah, there is. It's Britain. I mean, look how big he looks compared to. It's just. I don't know. It's just the whole thing. Just. I like traditional Cap, and I don't think this is that by any stretch of the imagination. Are they trying to do a Jack Kirby thing? I don't know what they're trying to do, but for completists, only this one, I'm afraid. And probably not the best example of John Romita at all.
No, and at that time we know that these were not supposed to be masterpieces of artwork. These were done for speed, and they have deadlines and they got to get it out. So hey, those books for me, it's when you look back on it, and of course with the politically correct type feel. I mean, we just saw that last panel with the Asians looking decidedly yellow. So let's
not even get started on Fu Manchu, for Christ's sakes.
Right.
And Shang-Chi, that is just a whole bunch of stuff. I think we'll talk about it at some point. I think it's a good conversation to have, but it's certainly not for today, I don't think. But still, you're right. You're absolutely right. There is a level of is histrionics? Is that the word? The whole idea. I mean, the idea of Cap was to beat the Germans and the Nazis in World War.
Yeah,
everyone get that. It's a world war. The commie threat was more of just an insular American threat more than anybody else. Like it was that's kind of the I suppose the switch out, isn't it? Everyone's concerned about the world war. Not everyone's compared.
The funny thing is that's what I kind of think that people after the end of World War II, they were like, "Oh, I don't still know what to do with Captain America, so I guess we're just not going to use him anymore." And then once the Cold War started, they were like, "Oh,
I have an idea.
We have some bad guys again. We can have them fight the communists." And then so it's kind of interesting the thought processes that I'm sure happened. So. But yeah, but it was great to see like the beginning work of John Romita translating his work to a more action based superhero style.
I think that's a good shout as well because you gotta, there's very few artists I think hit the ground running. I mean we can hit a couple like I suppose Neil Adams was there or thereabouts. John Byrne wasn't dramatically different by the time he moved forward.
There's not a lot of artists that show up on the scene fully formed, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
And once in a while you get a John Byrne where the first work of Byrne you see is like, okay,
whoa,
forever.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, even some of McFarlane's stuff's quite shady early doors. Hey ho. All right. So Captain America, Commie Smasher, not a rip-roaring success. It has to be said. Agreed?
Oh, agreed 100%.
Yep. So, thankfully, a few years later, Romita gets another shout with a Marvel book. This is Daredevil number 12 from January 1966. This is 12 years later, and he's on Daredevil. eBay, you can get this for £60 at various grades. 9.6 on Gold Collect has it at $2,100. Remember, that's a 9.6. It does drop dramatically as you go through the things. The gradings. All right, so you've got written by Stan Lee. Interestingly enough, you've got Jack Kirby layouts on this. So this is, and I'm sure, Professor, you can talk a little bit about this. This is back in the era where it was like Jack can't do everything. Jack will just do the bare minimum, and you go in and finish off, right?
Yep. Yeah, that happened quite a bit. Kirby his workload was, of course, gigantic, but Kirby never really did a lot of Daredevil. I mean, there was I'm trying to think of who the first was it Don Heck that did the first couple of Daredevils?
I think so.
And then of course they move on to and then John Romita does a handful of Daredevils before he's unceremoniously pulled off a Daredevil to do Spider-Man.
All right. So as we've said, Romita is on the finishing pencils. Sam Rosen, who will get a name check a couple of times later on, it provides the letters for the book. Interesting. No credit for inks, no credit for colors. So I'm not missing these people out. It's just they're not there. All right. So please
probably the house.
Yeah.
Or the bullpen, the Mary Marvel bullpen.
And probably people like Mary Severin would probably up there.
Yep.
Probably one of the most underrated creators Marvel had, for sure.
Yep.
All right, so
inking and colors were very much a team effort back in this day. Sometimes.
So you never know, right? All right, here we go. Kazar, man, who cares? Who cares? Now we're getting somewhere. Now this is starting to look a bit more like it, right?
This is remember that he did 12 years worth of romance comics in between what we saw and what we're seeing now. That he was over at DC honing that side of his craft, and now, this is very much you see drama, soap opera right in that first panel, right?
Definitely. Is that Karen Page that he's with?
It is. It's Karen and Foggy, right?
Yeah. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. Cool. But I thought Betsy was Betsy. What do I know? So basically, story-wise, what's going on? Matt's leaving Karen and Foggy to do their thing, and whilst he's swinging around as Daredevil, gets himself into some trouble. Pretty much. Yes, no?
Yes, no. Hey, I love that classic panel. I was taking at the panel on the last page. That's a classic Romita layout, isn't it? With all the heads of the characters for the book. He does that in Spider-Man 100 times.
Yeah, so definitely. Yeah, it's great. I love that. You can see the art's becoming a lot more dynamic. So you can see now there's a lot more movement through the panels. It's Daredevil. People would say he's a bargain basement Spider-Man. Not wholly untrue at this level, at this time in his life, but still.
This time, like Daredevil 12, and you had Spider-Man is probably in the 30s at this point. So, yeah, they were like, hey, we captured lightning in a bottle with Spider-Man. Let's do someone else, some other street level gymnast, and see what we can do.
I always think Daredevil's a massive cop-out because he's supposed to be blind, right?
Yep.
But then his super senses are so super sensitive, it's as if he can see. So then what was the point of making him blind in the first place? There is no actual sort of time when his blindness comes up to cause any problems.
But it's Stanley's world outside your window, right? And that's the how you identify with him. Daredevil has a handicap where many of us have handicaps, and he made it like people wanted to read it because he wasn't perfect. He wasn't Superman or Batman who never did anything wrong. In fact, Daredevil's private life was a friggin' disaster. If you ever read Daredevil, I would put it against Spider-Man as worse. The worst possible things happen to Daredevil, and they're all of his own making because he's kind of a cad, and he's, kind of a. I mean, I wouldn't exactly call him a douche, but he, sometimes he's not a nice guy to his friends.
True, that's true. So this is also the first appearance of the Plunderer. By happenstance, there you go. There's a character you've not heard of ever
in the last 50 years. That's Cesar's brother, is it not?
I can't remember. I honestly have no idea at this stage.
Well, because Cesar's actual real name is Lord Kevin Plunder, and his Captain Plunder, the Plunderer, is Cesar's brother.
There you go. Yeah. That'll make some reason as why Cesar's in the book to start with.
Yep.
I was like, I was reading this book. I thought I was tripping. I was like, what is going on? How have we gone from cityscapes to piratescapes to submarines to dinosaurs? What's happened? There seems to be no rhyme or reason to it.
This book might have actually, I don't know if it was a crossover, because I think at this point Cesar had a couple of stories in a different book. And this might have been a continuing part of a story between him and Plunder and the Plunderer.
Okay.
Because Cesar does Cesar end up in New York in this issue?
I'm not sure. We'll have a check when we go back. I do find it odd that Daredevil gives himself up to save the crew. That I understand. But then I don't understand why the Plunderer doesn't make him walk the plank at that stage. It's like that really bad villain type thing. Like, oh, I've got the hero. I'm now going to talk to him some. You're like, just do him in. Just do him in. Send him out to Davy Jones' locker. That's what you should do. But no. Where's Cesar end up? Let's have a look.
You sound like Scott Evil from.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah.
Austin Powers. Just shoot him.
Shoot him in the head. Boom. Done. Does he end up in? No, he doesn't. what happens is Daredevil is battered and bruised at this point because he's being shot. Excuse me, so much for dodging that bullet. And then there's some crazy ape-like dude. Who's this? It says there.
Oh, Magor, the last of the deadly ape men tribe.
There you go. He's about to make a monkey out of Daredevil.
That's some suspense right there. Tune in next month to see Magor.
Oh, I wonder if he wakes up in time. I wonder if his super sensitive hearing will hear him crunch stuff underfoot. Who knows? Who cares? Someone says.
Well, hey, you know, all these Savage Land stories from back in the day were a bit, you know. I think I've read probably a handful of Savage Land stories that I really liked. I liked Sauron in X-Men, and I liked it when Rogue ended up in there through the Siege Perilous. She hung out with Magneto. That was good fun. There's a bunch of Magneto stories with him in the Savage Land because he had the Savage Land mutates were like his little subgroup for a while, and and then of course Crusader had his own book a handful of times, and we got to know the Savage Land quite a bit with the different races over there, and then the dinosaurs and stuff like that. So
I always find it odd because in Marvel you've got Crusader, and DC's version's Commandy. But he's from the future, and he's like, I suppose they're similar in how they look as well.
Well, Crusader was actually a Golden Age character that they revived. So it wasn't that it was not someone that Lee and Kirby created. It was another timely creation that they brought back. And so when Crusader first appears in X-Men number 10, I believe, it was a return of Crusader, like the return of Namor or the return of Captain America.
Or the Vision.
Or the Vision.
Or Wonder Man.
Well, when the Vision actually appears, it's not the actual Vision from the Golden Age. It's but they stole the look and the name. Different character though.
Yeah, cool. Right, there you go. 2 up, 2 down. Time for one of our adverts. We're going to, because I know a certain someone who's got himself into some figure collecting. Yeah. Son of a gun, those Marvel figures are getting some stock.
It's clutter time.
Excellent. Here's my Invisible Woman figure. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
See that one?
I see what you did there. Or I don't see what you did there.
In that case, it's time for Crisis in the Toyverse. There you go. And for those of you who think I just buy DC stuff, I actually have three Marvel figures. I've got a binary from Marvel Legends. I've got a Black Cat from Marvel Select, and also the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman.
Hey,
there you go. My wife bought me the latter two. There you go. Cool. All right. So we're up. We've done the far reaches of Romita Sr. Time to go pretty much where everybody knows his name. No, not Cheers. It is Amazing Spider-Man 39, the first Romita Sr. Spider-Man, written by John Stanley. John Romita, as I said, is on art. Mike Esposito is on inks. Artie Simic is on letters. From August 66, eBay 6.5 will cost you £649. Go collect 9.6, $22,000. There you go. I will say right now, categorically, that I love this book. There is nothing about this book I do not like, so I'll just pre-warn you on that one. However, this book doesn't. It comes with some controversy or controversy, depending on how you pronounce it. Correct?
Sure.
All right, so I'll help out with that one. Thanks, Professor.
Yeah, help out with the controversy, because I don't know which angle you're taking it.
This is the book that helped. I said helped, not the old reason. This is the book that helped usher Steve Ditko off Spider-Man. Now, depending on who you believe, and depends on what you read, Stanley gives the barest minimum of scripts. Ditko, Kirby, go, do whatever there is to do. Ditko at one point championed about wanting some sort of writing credit, and he gets created or written by Stanley and Ditko down the line. The controversy is this, that they disagreed on who the Green Goblin should be.
That's right.
Ditko wanted somebody completely different that we hadn't seen before, thinking it was too quinky-dinky, that it's another bad guy from Spider-Man's personal life or Peter Parker's personal life.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that the Enforcer, the guy who runs the criminal gang Early Doors, or is it Fostrop?
Mr. Big.
Yeah, Mr. Big. He is actually Fostrop, who works at the Bugle. So it's not, and of course Ned Leeds and all the other people that kind of interact. But that's way down the line. So they kind of had no, this is the way we're going. And Ditko was like, right, fine. See you later. Don't need this. Off you go. It is only part of the reason, though, because they did have some falling outs beforehand. But what are your thoughts on this book? Do you love it as much as I love it?
This is one of the most iconic covers for Marvel that you could if you were to conjure up like a top 10 like Silver Age type of covers, this is my Spider-Man cover. If you say give me a Spider-Man cover, this is the one.
More than Spider-Man 50.
Yep, more than Spider-Man 50. This is just a coincidence that this is Romita's first Spider-Man book. It's this classic cover of Green Goblin, flying through the air with Spider-Man and with his mask off as Peter Parker, and you're like, oh my God, he knows who he is. For me, that was huge. Looking at that book, and then I loved today when I was like just paging through it, just looking at the art. It was such a like a sea change from Ditko to Romita. It was almost like picking up a new number one.
It's one of the odd times, excuse my voice, it is one of the odd times where I feel that the incoming artist has not tried to mirror the outgoing artist.
Especially in this part of Marvel where everything was a house style and everything had to look like Kirby touched it. And to have Romita come in here and he's doing all his own artwork. I know the Daredevil we looked at had Kirby layouts. This doesn't. This is Romita. And, it's just the storytelling that goes through here. And you just got to think of, Stan Lee must have been having a ball, every time he's getting artwork in, and he's just like, man, I got to put words to this. How easy is it? He just has to punch in, write some dialogue. And of course, Stan Lee's writing a lot of dialogue, but the facial expressions, those are some of the facial expressions that Romita does. Kirby's just not capable of. So it's, to me, was great. So, it's just and the cast of characters is just so big on Spider-Man at this point.
Mm.
Keep introducing.
So this page for me absolutely speaks volumes, much if not more than the action pages. Because you're absolutely right, Professor. There is a shed load of cast in Spider-Man. Yeah, you've got the Bugle Gang, you've got college, you've got the Osborns, the whole thing going on, right? And yet Romita manages to get us through each aspect, regardless of the amount of dialogue. And for a Stan Lee book, this is verbose. This is to the point of like, oh my God, are there any words left in the English language that I have not put in this book? Admittedly, side goat's not in there, so go figure. But it is a wordy book.
Yes.
Which at the time seems a little bit odd for Lee, because Lee's it was very by the numbers. But at this point, it's still, you've got thought bubbles going on, you've got speech bubbles, all sorts of crazy stuff going on.
Well, you got different storylines too. I mean, you got Harry's relationship with his dad. You got Gwen who likes Peter, Flash who likes Gwen, and that is the book. That's the stuff that Romita brings onto this book. This is the stuff that, it maybe might have been there a little bit before with Ditko, but this became more of actually the main plot line of the story, and Spider-Man became the subplot. You know. And that's what I think. I think, and I think I might speak for you too, with enjoying the Peter Parker aspect of the Spider-Man book almost, more than you like him fighting bad guys.
You're absolutely right. I've said for a number of years, for as long as I've known you, that people buy Spider-Man for the stuff that Peter Parker goes through. They know that once he puts on his mask, it's over. He's going to get through it somehow or another. But it's the stuff he goes through as Peter Parker that makes the book interesting.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with you, and that's a lot of the reason I read Spider-Man 2 is because I want to see what Peter Parker does, which
harkens horribly for the current run, admittedly.
Very true.
So there's a little bit of a subplot on this. The Goblin managed to get the goons to throw some gas at old Spidey there. The idea here is it's to minimize his spider sense. That means the Goblin can follow Spider-Man without being detected, finds out who he is. Oh no, find out who he is. That to me is a quintessential Romita panel.
Yeah,
where he's tucking everything in and stuff. I'm like, okay. And then, of course, wouldn't be the same without a stop at the Bugle. And then he threatens to tell everybody, but he can't because don't worry about Aunt May. She's going to, oh no, what's going to happen to Aunt May because she's ill again. Then she's worried about Peter and she's got some action stuff going on. I like how in comic books they always show Peter Parker with his shoes around his neck so he can climb with his feet and not hear that he's upside down wearing his shoes and no one cares. It's interesting. But then things turn out for the worse. He gets himself captured. And then we finally get the big reveal that the Green Goblin is Norman Osborn.
Yep. And then, can you imagine and I wasn't around to read this when it first came out. I wish that I knew someone back in the day that thought that this was like a huge thing.
Yeah. Do you think? We could always ask, who do we know? Does Don McGregor know? Was he?
I believe Don has all these issues. I'm going to have to ask him.
There you go. Get on it. Don, what was everyone? Did anyone care? He'll be like, yeah, no.
He might have wrote a letter.
Yeah.
Don was very prolific back then. So, I think the reveal there is like, I just think it's amazing, and it's so dramatic too. Like you wait till like the last panel, they show that like the chin, so it's like you're about to find out.
I'm gonna find out, yeah. The thing with Norman though, down the line, he must lose his memory, then gain his memory, then lose his memory, then Gurney's memory. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my. He's like King Tut in the Batman. Do you remember King Tut from the Batman
Oh,
66
yeah.
show?
Just like a
Yeah.
bop on the head.
Yeah, that's it. He forgets who's King Tut. He's oh my god. So Peter being ill and Green Goblin forgetting who he is. Staples of Spider-Man.
Yes.
Staples.
Yes.
I'm not sure about the things that keep the book together.
I'm still waiting for that to happen in the current run, for Norman Osborn to get whacked on the head and become a bad guy again.
Well, I don't think he is. I think he's pretty much reformed now. I think he'll be waiting a while. I know I'll be waiting a while. As promised, that book has been dropped from my pull list. And I did have a look at the new issue that came out, and quickly was pleased that I had dropped the book from my pull list because it was terrible.
Yep.
But that's
Didn't
a
miss
story
much.
story for another day. As I said to my local comic book shop where I had to break the news that I was cancelling it, was no matter Black Cat in that book is going to make me buy that book anymore. I'm done. I'll wait until the new creative team comes in, or at least a new writer.
Yeah.
Because Ed McGuinness isn't also doing it for me either. But hateful. Check out No Price Podcast for up to date Marvel comic books.
We talk about current stuff over there sometimes.
Yeah. Who
When I feel like
it. All right. Our last book. We can't talk about Romita without having a look at this book. This book is quite innocuous in how we look at it, to be fair.
Yeah.
This is Amazing Spider-Man 42, so not that far removed from the last book. It's November 66 when this came out. eBay, dodgy copy, £250. Go collect, 9.6 will cost you just shy of $3,000.
Just $3,000, huh?
Yeah. Written by Stan Lee, art by John Romita. Sam Rosen gets his second mention of the pod. Well done. On letters, unbeknownst to the public, when this book came out, I do find it ironic we've still got the Steve Ditko Spidey in the cover. This is the first full Mary Jane Watson appearance.
Yep.
She gets a cameo in number 25, but this one, face it, Tigers, we hit the jackpot. To coin a phrase, shall we say.
It was kind of funny because when you picked this book and I was flipping through it, I was like, why did Johnny pick this book? And I couldn't remember. And of course, then I get to the last page and I'm like, that's why.
Well, you got to do it, right? We've been talking all pod about how good Romita is on the whole rom-com, if you want to call it that. The rom-com, the angsty stuff that goes onto it. And in Spider-Man, I think the introduction of Mary Jane Watson unsettles the book so much because at that point it was Gwen and that's it. Oh, sorry, Gwen and Betty Brant. That you need that third female character to be a relevant part of Spider-Man or Peter Parker's life. I say a third female. I don't count Aunt May as particularly relevant. It has to be said. But still. I think Mary Jane is an absolute crucial character of Spider-Man. Not just from this point on. I find her change from the party goer that she is to the supportive girlfriend who knows the secret, to the reluctant girlfriend who knows the secret, to fully supportive wife, and then onward to where she goes. I think it's absolutely amazing. I think as a character, her growth from this point has been spectacular. It's just a shame what they're doing in terms of what they're doing currently, but by the by. So again, Romita is on full swing. He's on full alert with this book, I think.
Yep.
I thought 39 was good. This is better.
I just think I think from here now until issue 100, it's just consistent classic after classic. They're just such a consistency to the quality of the writing, the artwork, just the pacing, the characters, the introductions, the villains, the supporting characters. It's just this is must read Marvel 101. You just don't get any better than this.
Excuse me. I wholeheartedly agree. And There's Gwen looking fantastically Gwen-like.
Yep, with the headband finally.
Yep. Finally. The Peter's starting to make some kind of headway, and then he goes and blows it because he's an idiot. Yeah,
that's the way it works.
It's interesting. I think if 13th was here, he'd say something about the inks. I think somewhere along the line, something changes. That page looks quite bright.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this next page, I know it's supposed to be at nighttime, but it looks darker somehow.
The blacker lines and
Yeah. So I think there's definitely you were saying earlier how the inking and the colours were done house style because you know what, we've just got it, let's get it rushed on. I think this is a great example of that and how the book can look disjointed somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a look. So it's dark there, but light here on the next page, and this is the same fight.
Yeah.
So that should be quite consistent from that point of view. Spider-Man's unbreakable web gets a break again.
Well, unbreakable until the writer needs it to break.
Yeah. Stan Lee, I love how Stan Lee uses Spider-Man's web like Batman's utility belt. You need glue? I've got glue. You need strands? I've got strands. You need a ball? I'll make a ball. And you're like, what? What? I think in one of the early episodes, the Ditko episodes, he makes a baseball bat out of it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And swamp shoes when you take
or
on the
parachute, parachute, whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
A kite, glider. Yeah.
The parachute sounds all right, actually. That makes more sense. But how'd you get to, I suppose, anyway. Again, lots of dialogue to go through. Interesting, it's a James Jonah Jameson plot. How many times has Jameson plotted against Spider-Man?
Well, I think this shows a bit of maybe a sympathetic side to J. Jonah, where this is this character is obviously is J. Jonah Jameson's son John, who of course has another introduction of making a side character a villain, right? And of course John Jameson ends up having a very storied history with Marvel, becoming Man-Wolf and down the road. So, but I'm previously to this. I mean, J. Jonah Jameson's son was an astronaut and was successful, and how proud J. Jonah Jameson was of him. And then when they finally introduce him here, and he has, he becomes the villain and wants to beat Spider-Man. You see where J. Jonah Jameson is. You kind of see he has a heart. So that's one of those things. One of those things where he becomes J. Jonah Jameson is really the foil for so long for Spidey. Just in the background. It seems to think that every time Stan Lee needs, like if he has a writer's block or something and he can't create that new villain, hey, we can just use J. Jonah.
Yeah, it's a go-to, isn't it? It's become a bit of a trope.
Oh,
I mean, if I remember correctly, Jameson, he sponsors Scorpion.
Yep.
Spider Slayers.
Yep.
Have I missed anyone else? This guy.
There's been a few.
Yeah. So. Did he not hire Puma at one point? There's a figure you want. Puma. The Puma figure look great.
Oh, yeah.
The changeable heads between the two characters. Anyway, by the by, back to some wonky colours. Fight wise, it's all right. It's kind of, as you say, it's classic. Love the Spider-Man head there. That's pure Spider-Man, pure Peter Parker here. Absolutely great all the way through. And then there's the big page, the big reveal. Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot. Indeed, you did, Peter. Indeed.
How many teenagers fell in love when they saw that panel?
And she kept the look for ages.
Oh,
it wasn't until McFarlane came along and bunny girled her up that she changed dramatically.
Yeah. McFarlane came along and changed her hairstyle.
Hmm.
You know, and she looked like that forever.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to test your Marvel knowledge. Are you ready?
Maybe.
Okay. What happened to Anna Watson? Did she move to Florida or something?
At some point, yeah, during this run, he moves, but then
we never see her.
Yeah, she's not around much anymore, especially since they got married. When they got married, she's at the wedding.
Intriguing. I just think because Aunt May is such a constant in Peter's life, you would expect the same for
yeah, that was a direction they never actually went in, huh? Once Peter and Mary Jane got married, you never saw Anna Watson get a bigger role. You kind of maybe thought that she might be the meddling aunt.
Definitely.
I mean, obviously they're the meddling aunts because they're trying to hook up Peter and Mary Jane right here at the dinner here. But you never saw it. Whatever.
Did you like? Who do you prefer then? Who do you prefer for Peter? Do you prefer Gwen? Do you prefer MJ? Do you prefer Black Cat?
Oh, Mary Jane, all the way. When I first started reading comics was right when Mary Jane found out Peter was Spidey. So, within the first couple of years of me starting to read comics, they got married, and I always have loved Mary Jane, and going back and reading the back issues and everything, I always have a soft spot for Mary Jane in my Spider-Man reading. And I hated when they retconned the marriage and got rid of it. So I don't take it as far as blaming all the writers and stuff because I know they got to keep the book fresh. But hey, I wish that they would bring it back. They never will though. If you read anybody from Marvel, they're just never ever going to bring back Spidey and Mary Jane.
No, I don't think they will. Not even if anything happens to Paul, I don't think. But so yeah, I think this is another great issue. I think Romita's, as I said at the start of this one, I think he's in full swing. He's got his lines down. He knows exactly what he's doing now, what he wants to show. Lots of movements, lots of action. Doesn't mind the words because there's, as I said, still get a lot of dialogue in there. But no, one thing we haven't talked about Romita Sr. is that eventually he becomes the art director.
That's right.
Marvel Comics, right? So when he stops drawing Spider-Man or whatever, he didn't walk away from comic books. He stayed with Marvel. He was the art director for a ton of books. And I think you can definitely see his influence on people who came after him, whether that be people like Ross Andrew, Gil Kane for a while was on there. All those people that followed Romita have that kind of synergy. It's kind of like people who follow Neil Adams at DC, like the Jim Apparos, the Irv Nervik, also have that kind of sensibility from that point of view. So his legacy for Marvel Comics isn't just the 4 books we've talked about. I guarantee you will in your collection you will have something that has been either drawn by or influenced by John Romita. That's how important he's been, and that's why he's such a loss.
Yep, I'm sure you'll find any of today's artists, or even in the last 20 or 30 years, that will say they were either hired by Romita to draw a book, or ink a book, or color a book, or just either work for Marvel, or influenced artistically by the styles that he created it. And I don't think anybody can look at this amazing Spider-Man run that he had and think that there was anything other than excellent.
I agree wholeheartedly, massively. So condolences to the Romita family. Massive loss for us as fans, even more so for yourselves. But Comicdom has I suppose, enjoyed his greatness for decades. And for that, Mr. Romita, we thank you so much. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Right, okay. Don't forget to check out UCPN for all your favorite shows, including Professor
No Prize Podcast, all about the MCU, Disney Plus, and the comics. And make sure to check out our next episode, which hasn't been taped yet, but Secret Invasion drops on Wednesday on Disney Plus.
Oh, great. More rubbish for me to watch. Oh, my God.
I have high hopes for this one.
Yeah, me too. I have high hopes for all of them. And then something happens. Do you know what that is? I watched them. No, but I look forward to that, actually. I look forward to that a lot. And of course, don't forget TDC, the Definitive Crusade, for everything that is DC orientated. They're not going to talk about the Flash movie because they're all pansy asses that aren't going to see the movie. I've seen it. I'll talk about it later.
I saw it too.
There you go. Cool. Yeah. And of course, they'll talk about the DC Comics as the new Nightmare mini event kicks off shortly. There you go. Okay, that's it. Professor, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right, excellent. I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.